Alright, here's a little weird one I've been meaning to talk about for a while. You want to get real deep in the weeds here? Because I have a degree and I know how to use it. So, My Hero Academia, Hero Aka, everyone's current unproblematic fave, if everyone and their brother is to be believed. So why did a show like this take off when it could have just been another shonen trying to catch up in the wake of Naruto and Bleach ending? Well, it might have something to do with how modern Japan came to be. Now, this is a little extra speculative, but I think this holds up to a little scrutiny. And I should warn you at the outset that this is not particularly deep, it's a very surface level sort of editorial, and it's only going to cover the first arc or so of the show, because that's all that this really syncs up with. So let's get to learning. To review what happened in Japan after the end of World War II, we have a country in ruins as demonstrated in the Kurosawa film Drunken Angel, as seen here. The American occupation was not kind to the poor little country, and Japan had spent so long rallying under the banner of nationalism, only to be profoundly trounced by the same science and industry they adopted so fervently in the 1800s, that it all felt kind of pointless, and everything was, as you would expect, very dour and bleak. After all, nobody in Japan really wanted to be what amounted to a protector to the United States after denouncing them as the enemy for so long, as one can imagine. However, the Korean War came and went, and Japan got to reap some of the benefits of being a country-sized weapons depot. And by 1954, it began full-scale reindustrialization. By the 1960s, it had pivoted around to exporting automobiles, machine tools, and would go into electronics soon after. And what was at the core of this? Well, many theories abound, but one thing that scholars point to is the high literacy rate and educational discipline. Okay, fine, we'll go with it because it supports my thesis, and an educated workforce is a productive workforce. Then the 1973 oil crisis hit, which affected fairly well the whole world, but it encouraged a restructuring in Japanese production, where American companies just kind of shrugged and went back to bed. Because of this and advances in microcircuitry, the economic powerhouse that was Japan emerged as a robust and flexible industrialized nation, to a point. Unfortunately, that was all for naught once 1992 rolled around and the economy bit the big one, but that was not as much of a crisis of consumer confidence as it was a problem with the banking system, which is a whole nother story for another day. So how does this relate to Deku, All Might, and their gang of roustabouts? Well, it doesn't really feature anybody but those two, to be perfectly honest, but let's look at the breakdown. So, in the beginning we have Deku, who is dejected after the bomb has dropped that he's quirkless. All Might shows up out of nowhere and gives Deku with a little bit of power, while he goes and fights like normal. Deku goes and trains so he can learn how to use that power that he's been given more effectively in the meantime, so when he finally goes out into the world and into the academia part of the show, he's armed with both intellect and the power that he's getting from All Might. And then after the big blow-up of the final arc of the first season, Deku's in the bad shape but bounces back from it as a better hero even as All Might is in dire straits. It stacks up very nicely, almost too nicely to be a coincidence, which is why I think that it's pretty obvious that this is what they were going for. Does this sound too obvious to you? I know it sounds like a really easy thing to make a comparison to, but it was the only thing that was going through my head while I was watching this first season. So I guess what's the point is the big question, as with any editorial. Well, the point here is that all media has a basis in something as its guiding principle. It might not be terribly obvious, it might be a little esoteric, or it might be something ingrained in the national consciousness of the country of origin. As far as bounce-back stories go, it's pretty alright. And considering some of All Might's attack calls, I can't imagine that it's a mistake. Detroit Smash is kind of on the nose, after all, if you want to talk about economic powerhouses. But hey, I've followed wild-ass theories to an illogical conclusion before. So, hopefully you learned something interesting with this video, and now you can brag to your friends that you know more about MHA than they do. And I will reap big views off of this one because everybody loves their heroes. And if I may, stop drawing Ochaka so skinny. That being said, this is Professor Otaku, the greatest American anime critic, signing off.